Do you want to know the moment that changed my whole life? If yes, don't look away just the first 3 seconds. I promise I'll take you down to the Mississippi River, where one smile that smelled like engine oil opened a door to love and also to family betrayal I never saw coming. I'm Gloria Glowhaze. That afternoon, Memphis felt warm like an old soul song. Wind from the river crossed the Hernando Bridge, mixing the smell of popcorn from a street cart with the wet scent of fresh rain on the sidewalk. I walked through a rocky parking lot. My faded green dress brushed my knees. My thin-soled shoes tapped along. The sun poured a gold stripe on the water. From a small garage on Crump Boulevard, Leon Hayes stepped out, hands greasy, dark eyes gentle like shade trees by the levee. "Did your car make a weird sound today?" he asked, voice low and shy, like every word was wiped clean before it came out. I didn't own a car, and I hadn't yet bought the old bike. I kept promising myself each payday. But I had an excuse. "I think the brakes squeal," I said, and I didn't even know why my smile stayed so long. Leon bent a little, turned his fingers in the air like tightening a tiny bolt, then asked me to sit on the wooden step and wait. Kids ran past from Tom Lee Park, laughing loud. A practice jazz band on the corner hit the wrong notes, but the feeling was right. When he handed me a lemonade, his nails stained faint black, I knew. Some hands are born to fix machines, and some hearts are born to mend cracks we can't see. We started with cheap dates. 2 plastic chairs under a riverside tree, a bag of peanuts shared in half, and stories that didn't have clear beginnings. Leon talked about engines like the heartbeat of the street. I told him about dresses I sewed and my wish to paint my little tin roof house in Riverside a soft yellow. Memphis became a new map of memories where every corner had a sound. Church bells on Mississippi Boulevard, a train horn stretching out like a promise. Our love wasn't fireworks, it was a porch light steady and warm. Are you listening with the ears of someone who has been through a storm? If yes, stay to the end of this video. My story begins with Leon's oil-scented smile, but soon you'll see how numbers on a contract and signatures on clean paper can turn a family dinner into a silent courtroom. This isn't only my story. It's a mirror for every home, where love and calculation sometimes share the same pillow. And yes, on a bend that looked peaceful, we touched the edge of family betrayal. The first time Leon held my hand under the bridge, he said, "Glow, I can't promise days without rain, but I promise the porch will stay dry." I believed him not because the line was pretty, but because I had seen him patch my leaky roof, each rivet like a small prayer. We married on a Saturday morning with a few friends, a pie with a cracked top from baking too long, and a street band passing by that gifted us a bit of blues. Our riverside house leaked in storms and baked in summer, but even our pots catching rain learned to make their own music. I hung a wooden sign. Home is a verb. You do it every day with your hands and your kindness. If you've ever believed love is enough, please hit follow and leave a comment. When was the last time you felt safe under a roof? Because in the next chapter, I'll tell you about the day my child's young feet left our porch, muddy sandals left behind, and walked off with dreams shiny like new shoes. I didn't see the storm coming. Storms don't always roar. Sometimes they just change the sound of an engine, change a person's eyes when they count money. And in Memphis, where the river teaches patience, I learned my first lesson. Even calm water can be deep, and family betrayal often begins with, "It's for a better future." Please stay. This story honors the hearts that don't give up halfway. I still remember that Memphis summer. It changed color like an old garage poster. The sun felt heavier. The cicadas buzzed like a beat that never stopped. Marcus walked across our riverside porch in shiny shoes that reflected the warm kitchen lights. "I'm just stopping by," he said, spinning his car key like a promise hanging in the air. Daryl followed half a step behind, still smelling of the gym, looking up to his brother and afraid to fall behind. Dinner was honey barbecue wings, my mama's recipe, the taste that used to keep my boys at the table all through their childhood. But that night, the clink of knife on plate sounded like stone hitting stone. Marcus kept checking his watch. Daryl looked down, smiling at a text on his phone. Leon poured iced tea and asked if they wanted to go fishing that weekend. "I'm busy," Marcus said, voice cold like the A.C. on South Main. "The company is pushing a new project." He paused, looked at Leon's oil-stained hands, then looked away. Sometimes the words you don't say are heavier than the ones you do. "The shop could use a helper, Marcus," Leon said softly. "I won't push you, just if you want to learn." Marcus laughed. I wasn't born to breathe oil, Dad. He spoke quietly, but the word oil fell like a black stain you can't wipe off. Daryl froze, fork in midair. I looked at Leon's eyes. They were like the Mississippi on a windy day, still on the surface but still moving. After dinner, Marcus pulled Daryl out to the porch. I heard him whisper, "Come to Midtown. We've got someone to meet. Don't stick around here." His voice carried a street swagger, the smell of fancy cologne mixed with the hot June air. Daryl hesitated. He used to change fishing hooks for Leon and could feel an engine's trouble with a palm on the hood. But city lights can blur old memories. They blink so fast you think you've lived a whole new life. In the weeks after, 2 chairs stayed empty at dinner. Phone calls got shorter. The longest text was just a thumbs up. Marcus sent a photo in front of a glass tower on Poplar with a slick English caption. Daryl bragged about his first contract, a new car on payments, paint bright like a statement. "I'm happy for you both," I typed, my fingers shaking. In the kitchen, broth bubbled like rain tapping at the door. One night they came home without warning. They parked the new sedan at the steps, tires still wet from rain. Marcus walked in first with a paper bag from a Japanese place in Overton. "Mom, don't cook so much, we're just dropping in," he said, eyes sliding across the ceiling like it was a checklist. Daryl smiled. "We should upgrade the house, Mom." I looked at the wooden sign on the wall. Home is a verb, and I whispered "do" to myself like a prayer. Leon pulled out chairs and made small talk. I turned the oven low to keep the room warm and calm. But the smell of rain and fresh car plastic filled the house and pushed out the old, homely scents. "Have you thought about selling the house?" Marcus asked. "I've got a place in Midtown, safe and convenient. Riverside is old. It leaks when it rains. It's hot in summer. The neighbors are loud. I can help with money so you and Dad can move to a smaller, nicer place." I looked at the porch drying after the rain. The rivets Leon hammered in last month still shone under the porch light like tiny stars. "This house," I said slowly, "is where your daddy promised. The porch will stay dry." "You slept under that promise. You ran around it." Marcus shrugged. "Memories don't pay bills, Mom." He smiled. No, not a smile. Just a lip tilt to slide the words out. Daryl added, "We just worry about you." But I heard a gap in those 2 words, "about you," like they were on one riverbank and we were on the other. Leon didn't answer right away. He set down his glass and poured tea for everyone, even for Marcus, who never drinks tea. "This house doesn't wait for pity," he said, voice light as the breeze near the church on Mississippi Boulevard. "This house keeps itself warm by doing. Every nail on that roof knows my sons' names. Both of them." Marcus leaned on the table. "Dad, the world changed. I don't want to be stuck with grease and sweat. I want to live right by myself. You want to be different from us," Leon finished. "Not sharp, not bitter, just sad. Fine. But don't be different by putting us down." A gust lifted the curtain like a chest fighting for breath. I wanted to pull both boys close and talk about fishing mornings and loud, happy dinners. But I knew. Some roads only go one way. Night fell. I went to the river, stood on the wooden walk at Tom Lee Park. The Hernando Bridge lights drew long stitches across the dark. I wished I could sew the distance shut. Leon stood beside me, hands in his pockets, silent even when silence hurt. "Glow," he said at last. "If the boys succeed, we're glad. But don't let their success turn us into things." I nodded. It felt like he put a compass in my hand. Love was north, but the dial warned of a slow, quiet storm named family betrayal. In the weeks after, small pieces of life changed flavor. Marcus sent a new business card with a silver logo and a line, "I'll visit when it's convenient." Daryl stopped coming by Leon's shop. The youngest's coffee cup on the shelf got cleaner than usual, because no one used it. I woke earlier, cooked more, then shared food with our neighbor Ruth Johnson. Ruth said, "Kids grow up, they have their own lives." I smiled. True. But my life still has 2 empty chairs. One afternoon I found a note in Leon's drawer. "Don't say the sadness's name, it will find its way back." I folded it and set it next to a photo of our boys barefoot in the yard. I told myself to call joy by its name instead, even small joys, like a tire filled just right, or a roof that doesn't drip in a night storm. My love with Leon was never fireworks. It's a porch light. A porch light does one job: stand steady, shine long, help people find their way home. But a porch light can't chase anyone. Across town are bright rooms, thick contracts, sharp pens, and quick power. I started to see. Family betrayal rarely wears black. It wears a nice suit, smiles politely, and says, "It's for the future." It walks in with clean shoes that have never touched riverside mud, and it always knows the line every mother hates to hear. "Stop living in the past, Mom." I poured myself tea. On the porch, Leon greased the door hinge, steady as a heartbeat. I understood. To keep our porch dry, we must set boundaries clear, kind, and firm. And I prayed that, somewhere down the road, our sons would remember the way back while the porch light still shines. If not, I will still stand here, beside Leon, before the city names its storm, before our story turns down a path I don't want, but must walk to the end to understand. Jasmine Monroe came into our lives like the click of sharp heels on our old riverside porch, calm, smelling like cinnamon perfume, and so polite there was no room left for simple honesty. I am Gloria Glowhaze. The day Marcus brought Jasmine home, Memphis had a light rain. Drops ran down his car window in straight lines, like a brand new spreadsheet. Leon wiped his hands on a rag, opened the door, and smiled kindly. "Welcome," he said. Jasmine paused half a second when her heel hit the rough step, then smiled and touched my hand as softly as touching the rim of a glass cup. "Your house is cute, ma'am," Jasmine said, her voice smooth. But her eyes moved over the roof rivets, the old cream ceiling fan, the wooden family photo frame with bumps. I heard a small held-back laugh, not out loud, just a tiny pull at the corner of her mouth, like a satin ribbon pulled tight. I made the best dinner I could: lemongrass BBQ, grilled corn cakes, and a red amaranth salad from my garden. Jasmine tapped her spoon, cut small bites, and chewed slow. "I don't eat many carbs," she said, like a memorized line. Marcus sat straight, eyes scanning around like he was rating a user experience. Daryl smiled to be polite, but his fingers tapped his thigh under the table, nervous like a rap beat. "Have you thought about updating the house?" Marcus asked after he set down his spoon. The metal on the plate sounded like a period. "Riverside is nostalgic, but not convenient." Jasmine and I looked at a place in Midtown Elevator, covered parking, 24/7 security. "If you sell this house, and we add some money, you two could move somewhere much more comfortable." Leon poured tea for everyone. "We built this house with our own hands," he said, smiling with tired eyes. "I fixed the roof before storm season. It doesn't leak now." He touched the table edge like smoothing a child's hair. Jasmine set down her cup. Her voice was light. "Sir, I'm only thinking about your health and safety. Midtown has a gym, a clinic, and night staff. We would feel better too." She didn't say, "so we can focus on work," but those words were floating in the air. I nodded and thanked her. Inside my chest, I felt a little click the way an old latch turns too far. I wanted to ask Jasmine about her parents, her favorite childhood food, her first love on South Main. But her cinnamon perfume covered the rain and kitchen smells, and my questions faded like steam. That night, Marcus brought out a financial plan. He spread papers on the table printed from an office, maybe insurance. "Dad should raise his life insurance," he said. "I have a trusted advisor. Times are uncertain. We should prepare. If anything happens, Mom won't worry." He looked at me on the word, Mom, like he was directing a kind scene in a movie. Leon raised one eyebrow. "I'm still strong. I run by the river every morning and can still lift the old Ford's gearbox." "Exactly," Jasmine smiled. "Preparing early is always best." And she glanced at the roof. "Upgrading your place is also preparing for the future." Her words didn't smell like money. They smelled like systems. Daryl said almost nothing. He sipped tea and watched his brother like he was memorizing a presentation outline. For a moment I saw my 19-year-old self, sitting quiet while smart people told me what to do, nodding because I didn't want them to call me small town. At the doorway, Leon's rosemary pots from last winter shook a little, as if whispering, "This house breathes on its own rhythm." A few weeks later, we visited Marcus and Jasmine's glass apartment in the South Main Arts District. When the elevator opened, a white wall with minimalist art stood there so clean I was afraid to breathe on it. Small party, wine, cheese, lo-fi music. Marcus's friends talked about valuations. Jasmine's friends talked about optimizing lifestyle. When someone asked me about Riverside, I told them about the sparrows nesting under our porch. A pixie-cut girl smiled politely. That sounds poetic. The word poetic felt like scissors, clean and sweet, turning a living thing into a product. Leon stepped onto the balcony and looked down at traffic. I stood beside him. The Memphis sky was blue like fresh glass. Glow, he said softly. If one day we move because we want to, that's fine. But if we move because we're ashamed, we'll get lost. I held his hand, cold from the metal rail. When we left, Marcus pushed a stack of insurance flyers into Leon's hand. Think about it, Dad, he said, a little impatient. If you sign sooner, the benefits are better. Jasmine stood behind him, a hand on his arm like calming a pet. Daryl nodded fast. Makes sense, Dad. End quote. That night I set the papers on the table. The numbers danced like the Hernando bridge lights from far away. Something in me pulled back like a loose thread. I didn't hate Jasmine. I just couldn't find myself inside her voice. And Marcus, the boy who once brought me a brown seashell because Mom likes earth colors, now talked about insurance with eyes that looked through people like through a chart. Daryl stood in the doorway, half in the house, half in the hall. The next day Marcus texted, I booked a full checkup for Dad for peace of mind. I care about you both. The words were perfect, shiny like new floor tiles. I wrote back, thank you. Then I went straight to the shop. Leon was under a car, wearing muddy river shoes. Hey, I said, let's see our regular doctor. I want Dr. Leonard Price, he knows your health for years. Leon looked up and smiled. Okay. That afternoon, Jasmine stopped by alone with a box of macarons. I'm sorry if I said anything wrong the other night, she said. I just want things better for you both. I brought her to the kitchen and poured tea. She looked around, brushed the table edge, and said quietly, I'm not good with roots. I'm good with branches, new pots, new light, moving things around. I suddenly felt tender toward her, like a mom who loves a neat, high-achieving child who fears dirty hands. This house, I said, isn't a pot. It's soil. She gave a sad smile. Marcus needs to feel in control. And you need to feel clean, I said. We looked at each other over the steaming teapot. Auntie Glow, she switched her words. Please don't think we're the bad guys. I shook my head. I don't think anyone is bad. I just know smells. The smell of a kitchen, the smell of money, and the smell of fear. Jasmine paused. In her shiny dark eyes, I saw a small crack. The fear of losing place, face, and control. When she left, I watched her heels on the porch again. This time I saw it clearly. Every step Jasmine takes is measured by benefit. And benefit, without kindness to weigh it down, slides fast into cold calculation. I don't know when the first signature will land on some paper, but I already feel the chill of family betrayal, not loud, but wrapped in the words, for the future. That night, Leon pulled me close engine oil and mint tea in the air. Let's add more nails to the roof glow, he said. And one more nail for our boundary. I nodded. A plan formed in my mind. Keep our home by working every day. Keep our love by speaking clearly. And keep our hearts by not trading roots for a pot. In Memphis, rain can find old seams. But if you know where to set the nails, the porch can still stay dry. And I'll stand under that porch no matter how loud the heels sound on the wooden steps. Tuesday morning in Memphis felt like a clean white page. I thought it would be an ordinary day. Make tea, water the rosemary, bring some cornbread to Ruth Johnson. Leon left for the shop early to check the new air compressor we'd installed last week. Home for lunch, Glow, he said, touching my shoulder lightly, the small habit he had, like the 1,000th nail on our porch. I stood in the doorway and watched him go, not knowing it was a goodbye. My phone rang at 9:12. Unknown number. Mrs. Hayes? This is Regional 1 Health. Your husband, Mr. Leon, is in the ICU. Please come now. The word ICU hit me like a heavy thing falling into a thin pan of water. My keys slipped, clacked on the tile. I don't remember locking the door. I just remember running through the sun, my heart knocking off beat like the chipped ceiling fan. The hallway at the hospital was cold and white. The disinfectant made my tongue taste bitter. A young nurse led me into a dim room. Leon lay there wrapped in so much bandage that I had to search to find one small patch of skin on his wrist. The monitor beeped, calm and cruel. There was an accident at the shop, the nurse said. Someone called 911 about a blast. He has burns and a head injury. Dr. Price will be right in. I held Leon's hand and grabbed the sheet with my other hand. I'm here. His lips didn't move. I tried to fit my fingers between the tubes like placing a tiny piece of colored glass into a church window, hoping for a miracle. The door opened. Dr. Leonard Price came in, steady voice, clear eyes. Mrs. Glow, I'm Dr. Price. We're controlling infection and brain swelling. He's in deep sedation. We need time. The word time puffed up and then sank like an overbaked pie. Doctor, was it really an explosion? I asked. He paused and said carefully, That's the first report. We'll work with police to confirm. I texted Ruth, then called the boys. Strange Marcus and Daryl arrived even before Ruth, though I'd called them only minutes earlier. Marcus came in like a project manager. Dark suit, spotless shoes. Mom, stay calm, he said, pressing my shoulder like placing an object in the right spot on a desk. Jasmine followed, cinnamon perfume cutting through the medical smell. Daryl leaned on the wall, hands in pockets, eyes fixed on the monitor, scared and trying not to show it. Dr. Price explained kindly and clearly. The first 24-48 hours are critical. I nodded, but my eyes stayed on Leon's wrist, where the weak pulse beat. Marcus typed notes on his phone and asked about Plan A, B, C. Jasmine asked softly, Will insurance cover the costs, doctor? I saw Dr. Price blink. It wasn't a wrong question, but it was too soon, too cold. Day one moved like slow tape. Machines, rubber soles, my own breath when I dozed in a plastic chair. Ruth brought hot soup. I drank without tasting. By afternoon, Marcus pulled me into the hall. Mom, I checked. Dad's insurance is basic. If something happens, it'll be hard for you. Luckily, the upgrade packet I mentioned is still within the decision window, he said, luckily, like we'd gotten a free seat upgrade. I shook my head. I'm not thinking about if. Marcus pressed his lips. Think now, so it's not too late. Daryl avoided my eyes, tapping the rail with his finger the same rhythm from under the dinner table. Jasmine handed me water and smiled gently. I just want you to worry less, she said. I held the bottle but didn't drink. Some things are drier than water, heavier than metal, and stay in your throat longer than summer. On day 2, Leon made the tiniest move, his fingers squeezed when I whispered. I cried. The nurse said it might be a reflex. I still believed. Faith is the only thing you don't hook to a tube. Marcus made many calls short with me, long with someone else. I caught words like paperwork, beneficiary, timeline. Daryl asked the doctor, What are the odds if we reduce the ventilator support? Then he blushed. I just want to understand. I understood. Someone had planted that question. Night 3, 3:12 a.m. Alarms burst like a flock of birds hitting glass. I jumped up. The plastic chair crashed to the floor. Staff rushed in. Voices overlapped. I heard Dr. Price, increase the dose, get ready to shock. I stood against the wall, hands on my chest. Time wasn't time anymore. It was a tight string about to snap. At 4:37 a.m. Friday, Dr. Price walked out, took off his mask, eyes red like he'd stood in rain. Mrs. Glow, I'm very sorry. Sound went away. The world turned into a black and white picture without a caption. I remember saying, Thank you, the most useless words of my life, because no words fit this space. I kissed the white bandage on Leon's brow. I smelled engine oil mixed with medicine, the smell of the days we had, and the smell of a day I didn't know how to live through. Marcus appeared right then, like he'd waited for the door to open. He hugged me correctly, the right pressure, the right angle, then set down 3 lists. Funeral homes, service packages, prices. I called Elmwood Cemetery. They have an opening on Monday. If we move fast, it won't drag on. Jasmine nodded and handed me a folder. Here are the insurance forms, ma'am. I can help. Daryl stared at the floor, his shoe rubbing a dry watermark. I nodded like a puppet without strings. The next 3 days felt like walking on thin ice, choosing a simple, warm casket per Jasmine's advice, picking a hymn suggested by Pastor Isaiah Caldwell, signing pages where Marcus had already placed yellow, sign here tabs. I didn't have time to cry. Crying needs time, and time had been chopped into schedules, costs, service slots, and nods. Monday. Clouds hung low over Elmwood Cemetery. I wore my old black dress with a loose collar. Ruth pinned it with a safety pin. The casket lowered like the ground, letting out a long breath. Marcus checked his watch. Daryl whispered, "Sorry," so softly I couldn't tell to whom. Jasmine sat upright, phone quiet in her bag, but her eyes still moved like someone reading notifications. I stood and listened to the pastor speak of rest. Peace is a kind word. Today it sounded like a late apology. During the silence, wind moved through the elms. Leaves scraped each other like sandpaper on wood. I thought about the porch, the promise the porch will stay dry. I didn't know how to live without the man who kept that promise. But inside those sounds, the leaves, the shoes on grass, my heavy breathing, I felt a colder line. Family betrayal wasn't a fog anymore. It wore black to the funeral, shook hands politely, and smiled while saying, "I'll handle the paperwork for you. I am." When the first shovelful hit the coffin, I stepped back so I wouldn't fall. Ruth caught me. "Glow, breathe," she whispered. I breathed. The pain pulled tight, leaving a thin, straight line like a sewing thread. The thread hadn't stitched anything yet, but it told me this: from today on, I will sew my life back, one small stitch at a time, even if my hands shake and the needle pricks my skin. And before the needle touched the first cloth, I made a quiet vow to Leon. I will keep our home, keep your promise, and keep the truth, even if the truth is the only road through the long shadow of betrayal. That morning at Elmwood Cemetery, when the first handful of dirt hit the coffin, the phone in my coat pocket shook like a small trapped bird. I thought it was Ruth reminding me to drink water, but the screen showed an unknown number and 2 short lines. "I'm alive. That's not me in the coffin. Don't trust the kids." My knees went weak like wet thread. Wind whipped through the elm trees. The leaves scraped like sandpaper on my heart. I didn't tell anyone. I put the phone back in my pocket and squeezed the strap of my bag until my knuckles turned white. My mind staggered. If this is a cruel joke, who sent it? If it's not a joke, who did I just bury? After the service, Marcus and Jasmine talked about funeral bills like reading a checklist. Daryl slipped away to make a quiet call. Ruth asked if I wanted to go home. I nodded, but my feet turned toward Tom Lee Park. I needed river air. I texted the unknown number. "Who are you?" It showed, "Seen." Then a reply hit fast like a needle popping water. "Can't say. They're watching. Look in the papers at the shop. Start with Leon's desk. And don't drink anything they give you." A cold line crawled up my spine. I remembered the water Jasmine gave me at the hospital. I remembered Marcus saying, "Sign soon for better benefits." I remembered Daryl tapping the rail when he asked about the ventilator. All of it cast a long shadow over the boardwalk. That afternoon I went to Leon's shop. The roll-up door screeched. Oil smell mixed with hot sun on concrete. On the wooden bench, the toolbox was open. Pliers and wrench crossed like sleeping arms. I pulled the bottom drawer and felt a thin tin box. Inside were notes in Leon's slanted handwriting. Marcus suggests raising insurance. Says it's to protect Glow. Don't like this feeling. Daryl brought papers to sign for shop upgrade. Lots of small print. Why the rush? Bought new air compressor. Check the power. Don't let anyone touch the tank. I dropped into the chair. Every line felt like a nail. Leon drove into the porch strong, and it hurt. I scanned the desk. A brown envelope with Glow and marker. Inside, several cash withdrawal slips from January, February, March at First Horizon Bank, Beale Street. Leon's signature shakier than normal, a corner note from him. Signed with Marcus, said he'd read the small print for me since my glasses were foggy. My heart pounded my ribs. Leon never asked anyone to read money papers for him. I gathered the documents, put them in my tote, locked the shop, and went straight to the bank. Miss Naomi Clark, the branch manager, saw me and knew this wasn't a simple update. She took me to a small room with frosted glass. "Glow, I'm so sorry," she said, warm hand on mine. I showed the papers. "Naomi, there are withdrawals I didn't know about. The signature looks right but also not. And Leon." My voice broke. Naomi put on glasses and studied each slip. "The signature matches the file, but the shake is different," she said slowly. "It notes customer came with son here." She paused, looked at me, and a quiet sadness passed between her lenses. "Do you want to print the full 6-month history?" I nodded. The printer hummed. On white paper, numbers ran like chasing rain. 1,000. 3,000. 4,000. Naomi marked odd withdrawals in red and wrote, "Note. With Marcus, 2 times. Alone, 1 time. Can you check cameras?" I asked, knowing the answer might be no. Naomi nodded. "Internally, I can review and file an internal comparison report, but to release anything official, we need a police request." I breathed in. "Then after the bank, I'm going to the police department." Naomi looked longer, voice dropping like in church. "Glow, don't go alone. And be careful. Drink only what you boil." Simple words, but they felt like a safety belt keeping me upright. Leaving the bank, my phone buzzed again. "Next step, hospital file. Ask Dr. Price about toxicology. Tell no one." I read it over and over. The word toxicology was like a drop of ink in a glass of water spreading fast, making everything cloudy. I went back to Regional 1 Health. Dr. Leonard Price met me in the hall, tired rings under his eyes. "Doctor," I said, "sorry for the hour. I need to ask, besides an explosion, did you check toxins?" "Doctor." Price paused, a long beat that made my heart drop, then nodded. "Standard ICU intake panel. There were signs of methanol in the first blood draw faint, but enough to suspect. I requested confirmatory tests and notified the police to coordinate. But the official paperwork, where is it now? Waiting for medical examiner approval." "I'm waiting too." He lowered his voice. "Glow, the explosion doesn't match the injuries I saw. I noted that, and..." He stopped, like someone had just walked by. "And some non-medical decisions like talking funeral homes and service packages right away came too soon. I'm sorry I couldn't block all of it. I had to lean on the wall. Methanol. I'd heard of industrial alcohol, paint smells, bad liquor. I thought about Leon's morning coffee, the chipped mug. Who touched the cup? Who poured that first ink drop that stained our life?" From the hospital, I went straight to the police department at 201 Poplar Avenue. The public desk was bright and cold. I asked for the officer handling workplace accidents. He checked the system and shook his head. "No report of an explosion at Leon Hayes' shop." My eyes stung. "What do you mean, no report?" He looked up and spoke firm. "I mean no report. If there were an explosion with serious injury, the file would be flagged. There is nothing here." I sat down, still hugging my bank folder. In my head, loose pieces clicked together like magnets. The text, the withdrawals, the insurance, the methanol, the no accident report. They drew the outline of one word. Betrayal. Not loud, angry betrayal. Flat, folded betrayal tucked into a briefcase, spoken in a caring voice. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll handle everything." That night at home, I double-locked the door. I boiled water and made mint tea, then brought the cup to my lips like proving to myself this water is safe. Marcus called. "Mom, are things moving along?" I talked to the insurance. "I'll send someone over, please sign." Daryl texted later. "Mom, if you're tired, let us handle it." I looked at those bright lines on my screen and remembered the message from earlier. Don't drink anything they give you. I silenced the phone. I spread the papers on the table. Bank slips, Leon's notes, printed statements, the officer's number, Dr. Price's name underlined. On the edge of my notebook, I wrote one short line. "Start with the truth." Then I began to write each letter like a stitch to sew back what had just been torn. Because from that second on, I knew my road would go straight into the heart of family betrayal, and only the truth is sharp enough to cut the dark in two. That afternoon, the arcade restaurant felt like a paused movie, yellow lights, black and white tiles, and the smell of weak coffee mixed with buttered pie. At exactly 3, a man with salt and pepper hair, broad shoulders, and calm, sharp eyes sat across from me. "Deshaun Calloway," he said in a steady voice. "I'm here for Leon, and for you." I didn't ask how he got my number. Since the day at the station, I've learned, asking questions at the wrong time wastes your chance. I just nodded and put my hands together so they wouldn't shake. "Talk," I said, "but give me 3 things, the truth, clarity, and no sugarcoating." Deshaun opened a brown briefcase. Inside were only a few items, a small voice recorder, a stack of photos clipped together, and some bank statements with highlights. Leon hired me 3 weeks ago, he said. He thought Marcus and Daryl were messing with money and pushing life insurance. He didn't believe their "we're doing it for mom" story. My throat tightened. The lines I had read in Leon's notes were now spoken out loud by a stranger. He set the recorder on the table and pressed play. The sound crackled, then cleared. A door closing, shoes on our riverside porch, and Marcus's voice. "Hurry up. Keep it like this for 2 weeks. Finish the paperwork, mom signs, and smooth." A small "yeah" from Daryl. "Methanol?" Marcus laughed softly. "Tested. Right dose, no smell, no taste in the coffee. Looks like a stroke. If it leaks, I've got someone at the hospital to write a neutral report." "Turn it off," I whispered, but Deshawn's hand stayed steady. "There's more," he said. He pressed again. This time it was a phone call, noisy in the background, but the words were sharp. "After we kill Dad, we lock Mom down. Cover story is grief depression. Jasmine will talk to some doctor to sign an initial evaluation. Mom takes sleeping pills and leaves a note. The estate goes to us." Daryl's voice flickered. I'm not sure. "Marcus, be sure. We've got debts. No way back." I felt my chair drop out from under me. Deshawn stopped the tape and handed me a napkin. "I'm sorry," he said. "But I promised Leon. Whether it's enough or not, I'd show Glow the whole truth." I crushed the napkin in my fist. My heartbeat felt like someone knocking from inside my ribs. He slid the photos over. They were from a hidden camera. A little grainy, but clear enough. Marcus in a cap and black mask, leaving a tool store on Union Ave, holding a small plastic bottle labeled denatured alcohol. Next photo. Marcus puts the bottle in a brown bag and pays cash. Another. Jasmine in the South main elevator on a call. A caption from audio analysis read, "Doctor, mental eval, mother-in-law." I looked up, my mouth bitter. "Jasmine. New?" Deshawn exhaled. "She joined the plan to make things look official after the act. The legal level is different, but morally, you know." I nodded, eyes burning. He put down the statements. Money flowing out to loan shark interest and a hidden betting account, numbers spiking then dropping like a heart monitor. "Marcus owes 70 grand, Daryl 40, he said. "Due this month." They needed fast big cash, and they measured their parents like people pricing an old house. The word measure felt like scissors cutting my memory. "So," I breathed in. "That morning who made the coffee?" Deshawn looked straight at me. "Marcus." My fingers traced the rim of my glass like it could hold the answer for me. "And the accident report?" He shook his head. "None. I checked with Sergeant Andre O'Neill. They made up the compressor blast to push everyone away from a toxicology path." I was quiet and counted 5 breaths. Each breath was a stitch pulling through thick cloth. When I spoke, my voice sounded taller than I felt. Next step? Deshawn wrote a plan. 1. Submit everything audio, photos, bank records to Sergeant O'Neill and request scene preservation at the house and shop. 2. Request a search warrant, look for methanol traces and the chipped mug Leon used. 3. Work with Dr. Leonard Price to protect chain of custody for blood samples and speed up forensic talks. 4. File to freeze assets, pause all insurance and property actions so they can't move money. 5. Prepare for their counterattack. They'll say you're unstable. Try to force a financial power of attorney. "What will they do first?" I asked. "They'll go after your memory and credibility," Deshawn said. "They'll call you delusional from grief. They'll push a friendly doctor to write an initial note that you have reduced capacity for money decisions. And..." He paused and met my eyes. "They may offer food or drink you must not take. You've already been warned. Keep discipline like a mechanic tightening bolts. Only drink what you make yourself." I gave a dry laugh. "Can I beat them?" Deshawn nodded. "With truth, time, and legal walls. And one more thing." "What?" "Calm. It makes them slip." He handed me a cheap phone already loaded with Sergeant O'Neill and Dr. Price. "Use this. Don't use your old number when talking about evidence." Then he closed the briefcase like closing a door. "Glow." Leon felt the wind change before we did. "He hired me on a hunch, but he trusted you for your backbone." I'll be honest, the first time I heard that tape, I wanted to slam the table. but slamming doesn't keep justice. Keeping evidence does. I willing today. I swallowed my tears slow, but firm. We file it tonight, I said. I won't sleep until the arrest order falls like a Memphis rainstorm. Deshawn smiled a little, the smile of someone who knows storms. Let's go. We stepped onto Patterson Avenue. The evening wind hummed on the wires like bees. I stopped at the window and saw my reflection. A gray-haired woman standing straight, eyes bright, not from easy hope, but because the road was clear. Up above, Big River Crossing flashed like a needle. I felt the thread in my hand. On the way to 201 Poplar Ave, I texted Ruth. If Marcus or Daryl come by tonight, don't let them in. I'm not drinking anything from them. Double lock the door. I'm okay. Ruth replied with a prayer emoji and, the porch light is on. I'm here, waiting for your news. At the station door, Sergeant Andre O'Neill was waiting tall and alert. Mrs. Hayes. Mr. Calloway, he said. I placed the recorder in his hand. The click sounded like a hammer hitting a nail. The tape played again in his office. Across from me, I didn't see my sons anymore. I saw suspects. I held the table edge, listened to the end, no skipping, no hiding. When it stopped, Sergeant O'Neill took a long breath, wrote a few lines, and looked up. We're requesting emergency arrest warrants. Go home, lock up, no contact. Tonight may be long, but morning will come. I nodded. A sentence rose inside me, clean like letters stamped on steel. Family betrayal had called itself by the wrong name in my home. From this moment on, I'll put the right name on everything. Crime is crime, evidence is evidence, and justice, if we're patient, arrives right on Memphis time. That night, 201 Poplar Ave was bright like a tight line of thread. Sergeant Andre O'Neill laid the plan on the table. A search warrant request, an emergency arrest request, and papers to protect the toxicology samples. Deshawn Calloway sat beside me, steady like an anchor. I signed each initial here. My hand shook a little, but my mind didn't. When the on-call prosecutor came in, he listened to the tape and looked at the photos. He said 3 words, "Request it now." At 11:47 p.m., the warrant fax went to the Shelby court. At 12:19, the word "granted" appeared. Sergeant O'Neill stood and gave clear orders. Team A, South Main, the place of Marcus and Jasmine Monroe. Team B, Midtown, Daryl's rental. Team C, the Riverside house and shop. Lock down the scene. Calloway, go with Team A. Mrs. Glow, go home with an escort, double lock your doors, and don't open for anyone. I'll call when we're done. I nodded. Walking out through the glass lobby, it felt like Memphis held its breath. Ruth Johnson waited for me on the porch. Our yellow porch light stayed steady, like always. Sit, Ruth said, handing me mint tea. That you boiled, she stressed it, half joking, half serious. I texted Miss Naomi Clark. Filed everything. Please keep the statements and your internal reports safe. She replied right away. I'll be at the bank early. Stay strong. At 1:06 a.m. Dr. Leonard Price called on the cheap phone Deshawn gave me. The hospital sealed the toxicology panel with full chain of custody. I signed. The medical examiner gets it at 6 a.m. His voice was tired but firm. I thanked him for the work and for holding back anger to do every step the right way. Time moved slow. Each minute felt like a nail pushing through thick wood. I opened my notebook and wrote across the page. Action name. Stay. That was the only thing I could do to keep the night from swallowing me. 2:41 a.m. The phone buzzed. Deshawn. Going up. A blurry photo came with it. The South Main hallway under blue security lights, the entry team moving like shadows that know when to appear. 2:52. A second photo. Door opening under the warrant, a muffled police, through black masks. Another text. Marcus just hid his phone under the pillow. Jasmine is too calm. Over in Midtown, Team B reported. Daryl hesitated at the back door. 3:05 a.m. Stopped. I pictured my youngest, the kid who once blew soup bubbles by the stove, caught between two truths, a cop saying, "Hands where I can see," and his brother's shadow in his head. I didn't cry. Like any precious thing, tears have to be used at the right time. 3:27 a.m. Sergeant O'Neill called me directly. Mrs. Glow, listen. Both are in custody. Team C is sealing your kitchen and the shop and taking samples from Leon's chipped mug. Do you need medical help? I said no. I needed quiet to hear if my heart was finding its normal beat again. At 8:30 a.m., please come give a second full statement, he added. Softer. I hung up and held the teacup like a warm anchor. Ruth slipped Leon's old kitchen towel into my hand. The oil smell won't leave, she said, but you'll learn to keep it in the right place. In memory, not in your throat. Near dawn, the river wind changed. The sky pulled away from the roof edge like cloth from a frame. At 5:58, my door camera pinged. Jasmine at the gate, dark coat, no makeup. I didn't go out. The bell rang again. Then my regular phone lit up, unknown number. Miss Glow, please let me in for 5 minutes. I just want to say... I put it on speaker so Ruth could hear. Jasmine, I said, last night Justice knocked on your door. If you know anything about a psych doctor and a capacity letter, tell Sergeant O'Neill. There's no room here for the dutiful daughter-in-law act. Silence. Then she said, I just want things by the book. By the book, I repeated. Starts with the truth. She left. I sat and felt the ground under my feet change, no longer mud that traps you, but firm earth for the next steps. 7:15 a. Miss, Naomi emailed. The internal report was done, noting unusual shake in the signature and came with Marcus. One more line. CC me when you file to the prosecutor. 30 minutes later, Dr. Price texted. Medical examiner reports preliminary positive for methanol. Certified confirmation due today. My spine stood one notch straighter. At 8:30, I was back at 201 Poplar. Deshaun handed me coffee. I shook my head. He switched to a sealed water bottle. In the interview room, Sergeant O'Neill played the tape again. Hearing Marcus say, kill Dad, then lock Mom, I put my hand on the table, nails pressing the wood, and told it from the start. The water Jasmine gave me, the withdrawals, Leon's tiny hand squeeze in the ICU, the way Marcus placed sign here, exactly where my swollen eyes would miss it. I handed over Leon's note, the printed statements, and the anonymous texts from the cheap phone. Everything fit like bolts, tightened to spec. At the end, the prosecutor came in. We'll seek a temporary asset freeze and freeze any insurance payouts, he said. Do you have a safe place? I gave a tired smile. My house is safe when the truth lives in it. He nodded. We'll have patrols at your door tonight. At noon I went home. Memphis sunlight dotted the tin roof. I straightened the wooden sign. Home is a verb, and wiped dust off the edge of the word is. Then came the first knock of the promised storm. Reporters calling, neighbors texting, rumors sliding in like smoke. I stood in the kitchen, set out 2 ceramic mugs, one for me, one for Leon, and chose not to put his cup away like a museum piece. I kept it in daily life, where it belongs. Before night, Sergeant O'Neill texted. Marcus is silent and asked for a lawyer. Daryl is scattered, showing panic. Arraignment is tomorrow morning. I replied, Thank you, I'll be there. Then I turned off the screen and stepped onto the porch. The porch light came on earlier than usual, gold and steady, like a memory. I understand, family betrayal tore the roof over my porch. But tonight, for the first time since Leon left, I hear the wind through the new roof, and I am not cold. A small flame burns in my chest, not bright, just steady enough to light the way through court, through reports, and through the days when sons will have to be called defendants. I will see this through, because on Memphis time, morning always comes slow, but sure. Tuesday morning, the Shelby County Courthouse felt cold like polished stone. I, Gloria Glowhaze, stood on the steps and looked up at the tall columns while the clock bell rang a low note. Deshaun Calloway walked beside me and lightly held my elbow, like a quiet anchor. Sergeant Andre O'Neill waited at security and nodded. Today, we call things by their real names. I nodded back. A crime is a crime. Inside, I also gave my home a new name. Safe. Courtroom 3 was packed neighbors from Riverside. A few reporters. People from the block. I saw Ruth Johnson in the 3rd row, hands clasped, eyes worried and fierce. At the defense table, Marcus Hayes wore an orange jail suit, head down, jaw tight. Daryl Hayes sat next to him, red-eyed and sleepless, fingers tapping without thinking. Jasmine Monroe sat in the gallery, simple black dress, no jewelry. Her eyes looked dry on purpose. Judge Patrice Lewis came in. "Court is in session," she said, strong and clear. I heard the clerk's pen, shoes on the floor, and the polish on the wooden benches. The prosecutor started fast and plain. "This is first-degree murder by methanol poisoning and an attempted murder of the mother to steal insurance and property. We will show motive, method, and cover-up, piece by piece." First witness, Dr. Leonard Price. He looked tired, but his voice was steady. "The ER records show signs of methanol poisoning. Metabolic acidosis, vision problems, worsening breathing. Injuries do not match a shop explosion. The first tox screen was positive. Blood, stomach fluid, and hair were sealed with chain of custody and sent to the medical examiner." The prosecutor showed a chart of formate levels. The room went quiet. I gripped my chair. Each medical term felt like a screw tightened right. Defense stood. "Dr. Price, are you sure methanol caused the death?" He didn't blink. "Yes." Symptoms, toxicology, and ruling out heart causes based on a full exam 3 days before death all support methanol poisoning. The lawyer tried. "Work accident, and industrial solvents." "Doctor," Price answered simply, "the levels, plus the coffee sample from the chipped mug at home, point to oral intake." He glanced at me once, not to comfort me, but to anchor the truth. Next, the forensic toxicologist. She confirmed methanol high, ethanol low, formate high. Traces matched denatured alcohol bought at a tool store. She explained slowly for the jury. "It can look like a stroke at first. That's why these poisonings hide in plain sight." Then Sergeant O'Neill, his voice was a hammer on a ready nail. He described the warrants, finding the hidden recorder, pulling the phone from under Marcus's pillow, the Union Ave store photos, and bank statements from Miss Naomi Clark cash withdrawals marked, "with son." He faced the jury. "This isn't kids gone wrong. This is a planned crime." Then the audio played. The room heard it all soft like kitchen whispers, then sharp with porch wind. Marcus's voice. "Right dose, no smell. Looks like a stroke. Someone at the hospital will write it neutral." Daryl. "What about Mom?" Marcus. "Lock Mom down. Psych eval, sleeping pills, a handwritten note." A ripple in the crowd. Judge Lewis tapped her gavel. "Order." Jasmine took the stand. She admitted calling a doctor for a quick psych evaluation named Dr. Lionel Carter. "I thought Miss Glow was broken by grief and needed oversight," she said carefully. "I didn't take part in before." The prosecutor pressed. "What did you know about methanol?" "Nothing," she said. "You say by the book, but your book cleared the road to take her assets. Do you understand?" A long beat. "I understand," she whispered. Then Dr. Victor Barnes, accused of tweaking medical notes. He tried, "I don't recall. I was busy," until the prosecutor showed texts from Marcus. Note chart, possible heart issue after shop accident. Cash, as discussed. Barnes turned pale. "I was wrong. I took $5,000 to soften the wording." "I didn't think." The courtroom gasped. Judge Lewis warned him about separate criminal liability. My turn. I walked to the stand. The shadows of Marcus and Daryl fell on the wall, one long, one short like two clock hands not pointing to the same time. The prosecutor asked, "Miss Glow, what do you want the jury to know?" I touched the rail like the edge of my kitchen counter. "I once believed a dry porch was enough for a life," I said, calm and clear, until family betrayal walked into my kitchen dressed as a better future. It brought papers, signatures, polite smiles, and a cup of coffee. Today, I'm not asking to get back what I lost. I'm asking us to call it by its name, so no other home confuses love with calculation. Defense tried grief fog, and memories can be wrong. I said, if memories lie, Leon's blood doesn't, and it already spoke. The room held its breath. Trial ran 3 days. Final reports confirmed methanol. Chain of custody held. Money trail showed motive. The recording closed the loop. The prosecutor's closing was firm. No amount of debt excuses murder. These defendants chose a plan, chose poison, chose a cover-up, and then chose to erase the mother with a staged suicide. Justice is not an apology. The jury left. 10 minutes, 30, an hour. Footsteps returned. The clerk read, clear and loud. On first-degree murder of Leon Hayes, guilty. On conspiracy to murder Gloria Hayes, guilty. I didn't fall. Ruth cried, the kind of tears that come after a long, hard hold. Marcus slumped. For the first time, his face looked human, no charts, no shine. Daryl stared into space. His tapping stopped, like the battery died. Judge Patrice Lewis sentenced them, voice tuned like a true string. Life in prison, parole not before 30 years for first-degree murder, plus time for conspiracy to murder their mother. She looked at them. You priced your parents. This court prices your acts. 3 gavel strikes, each one sealing the door. Outside, wind pushed thin newspapers down Main Street. Deshawn handed me a sealed bottle of water and said nothing. Sergeant O'Neill shook my hand. The hardest thing you did, he said, was stand up with the truth. I looked at the clean blue Memphis sky after rain. Family betrayal now sat where it belongs. In the courtroom, in the verdict, in the jail, not in my kitchen, living room, or bedroom. At the courthouse door, I paused and bowed my head toward Judge Lewis for the court, and for Leon. Then I stepped down the stone stairs and felt a new kind of calm. Calm to start living again, with a porch that will stay dry for a long, long time. That first morning after the trial, Memphis smelled like wet soil and fresh-cut grass. I, Gloria Glow Hayes, stood on the old concrete of the garage, holding a small shovel instead of Leon's old wrench. I dug a shallow hole and planted a peach-colored rosebush that Ruth Johnson brought. Put something soft where things used to be hard, Ruth said, firm but gentle, like a clean kitchen towel. I patted the dirt and heard a steady beat in my chest. Begin. At noon, the news came. Marcus had taken his own life. Sergeant Andre O'Neill called, voice flat and calm. Mrs. Glow, I'm very sorry. This morning, at the jail. I held the edge of the counter so I wouldn't slip. No tears, just a deep quiet like the bottom of a river. Daryl was moved to the forensic psych unit after a panic attack. He hit his head on a wall and kept saying, Dad, don't drink the coffee. I had to sit. Ruth slid a chair over and poured tea. Pain is also a kind of truth, she said. We sip truth in small sips. That afternoon, Jasmine Monroe came to the gate, no makeup, no black dress. She held a small cloth bag and stood behind the wooden fence. Miss Glow, I'm sorry, she said. Her voice had lost its shiny politeness. I didn't think it would go this far. I looked at her hands, the same hands that once rested lightly on Marcus's arm in the elevator. Now you know, I said. What's left is to tell the truth to the police, then step out of this story. She nodded, eyes red. I'm leaving Memphis soon. I'll carry a piece of shame. Carry it, I said, so it reminds you to tell love from control. She bowed her head and walked away like someone learning how to place her feet again. That night, I set the insurance check which the prosecutor had frozen and then returned to me on the table and looked at it for a long time, like a stubborn stain. I could almost see the coffee cup memory spreading around its edge. I called Deshawn Calloway. I want to donate all of it to make a fund. I don't want $1 of it in my house, he asked. What name? I answered. The Leon Hayes Fund for Victims of Family Betrayal. Have your lawyer write the rules. He paused, then said, Leon would like that. In the days after, Deshawn and I sat at the kitchen table with a volunteer lawyer. We wrote the rules like a bolt-tightening manual, clear and step-by-step. Mission: legal help, private investigation, and therapy for people hurt by violence and betrayal inside the family. Process: request financial reviews, preserve evidence, freeze assets, and order medical checks when poison is suspected. Principle: don't call it drama. Call it what it is, crime. I signed my name. It felt like putting another strong rivet in the porch roof so strangers who enter won't get rained on. Pastor Isaiah Caldwell stopped by with a tiny wind chime. Not to chase away evil, he smiled. So when the wind hits, we remember to breathe. He stood with me by the new flower bed and read a short line. Truth sets free, but first it tears. I nodded. I had been torn. Now it was time to stitch. In the garden I built on the garage slab, I planted lavender, rosemary, and marigold. The smell of oil still hid in the cracks, but when the wind blew, the herbs covered it like a new glaze. Each morning I took my pruning shears to the porch and touched the stems the way Leon used to touch a wrench. Not fast, just the right pressure. Ruth joked, "You fix people like Leon fixed engines." I laughed and saw a new wrinkle on my cheek. I didn't mind. News about Marcus shook the city. Some called me Iron Mother. Others said cold. I set the landline to a soft ring and taped a note on my mirror. Don't argue with echoes. When I wanted to explain myself, I went to the garden. Dirt doesn't ask, it just lends a shoulder. Daryl sent messy letters from treatment. Slanted lines, smudged ink. Sometimes asking forgiveness. Sometimes cursing himself. Sometimes telling dreams of Leon on the porch with an empty coffee cup. I read each letter once, then filed it in a brown folder. I told Deshawn, "Forgiveness belongs to God. Accountability belongs to the law. As for me, I choose boundaries." He nodded, eyes calm like a flat river. Dr. Leonard Price dropped by now and then with seeds and thin books on trauma. "Survival isn't forgetting," he said. "It's learning to carry." He sat on the steps with Ruth and me and told night shift stories, and about a patient saved, because the team checked tox, a Leon lesson. I realized his job and mine were the same. Keep truth on track, he with lab tests, me with paperwork and care. When the Leon Hayes Fund launched, we chose the red brick church on Mississippi Boulevard. Pastor Isaiah rang the little bell. Sergeant O'Neill stood at the back with folded hands. Miss Naomi Clark brought the first envelope from the bank branch. Deshawn read the 5-step plan for victims. Ruth served mint tea. I took the mic with steady hands. "We are here because we've learned family betrayal isn't gossip, it's action with consequences. If you think your roof is leaking at home, call us. We bring a porch light." After the event, a woman in her 40s hugged me and couldn't speak. Behind her, a little boy held a ripped backpack. I knelt. "What do you want to plant?" he whispered. "Sunflowers." I gave him a seed pack. "Plant them where there's sun. Like your mom." The mother's eyes were wet, but she stood straight. I could almost see Leon smiling on the porch, the kind of smile that lights the eyes more than the mouth. The city slowly learned to use the right words. When someone texted, "Miss Glow, my home is difficult," I asked back, "Violence or financial control? Any threats? Any strange papers?" Clear words made people less confused and less afraid. In the first year, our fund helped 17 cases, 5 with independent investigations, 8 with asset freezes, 4 with long-term therapy. Each time a family got back safety, I planted another small bush in the garage garden. A lavender for a wife who left abuse, a rose for a protected boy, a mint patch for a dad who quit drinking. One night the wind chime rang 3 soft notes. I poured 2 cups of tea and set one by Leon's photo. "I used the insurance money to buy insurance for others," I whispered. "Not papers, people helping people." On the kitchen wall, the porch light reflected on the sign, "Home is a verb." I understood. Home is a verb isn't only tightening bolts and patching roofs. It's naming things right, keeping boundaries, and sharing light. On Sunday morning I took peach roses to Elmwood. On Leon's stone I added a small brass line, "Your love became a shelter for many." I told him about the sunflower boy, the woman who went back to trade school, about Jasmine leaving without a word, and about Daryl still sending letters I haven't opened. The grass moved. The smell of last night's rain rose cool and clean. I closed my eyes and heard a soft, like a bolt finally threading right. Back home, I hung one more porch light in the garden corner. When night came, 2 warm dots stood still and shone, like 2 hands holding up water for a new swimmer. Family betrayal took one head from my home, but it gave me a calling, the job of keeping the light. And as long as the light stays on, people will know which door to knock. July of the next year in Memphis felt like the last drop of honey from summer. Gloria Glow Hayes stood under the porch Leon once tightened with 1,000 imagined nails. The wind chime rang softly over a garden grown from our old garage floor. The lavender was a hand taller, the peach roses were on their 3rd bloom, and the rosemary smelled clean like a kitchen just washed. Every morning I brew 2 cups of mint tea, one for me, one by Leon's photo, then open the gate so anyone who needs a porch light can come in without waiting long. People say time heals. I think time just lets you learn a new job. Sewing. I sew the holes in my heart with the thread of truth, one steady stitch like my steps along the Mississippi. Some days the needle slips and hurts. Some days it lines up smooth like a quiet part of an old soul song. After the trial, I learned a real home isn't built only by materials, but by loving discipline, love with boundaries, knowing when to say no, and when to open the door to the right people. Maybe that's the only language strong enough to rename what broke us. Family betrayal. One afternoon, I took the sunflower boy back to the garden. He worked hard, turning soil like a tiny mechanic. His mother said she got a trade school scholarship and helps in a cafe at night. I told him, "When you care for plants, you learn to wait. Waiting is also a skill." I thought of Daryl, the scattered letters from the treatment unit every time I open one. Wind slips through a fresh seam. I don't write back, but I turn the porch light on early when it rains. Forgiveness is God's work. Accountability is the law's. My part is to keep darkness out of the kitchen and stop any new story from repeating the old steps. Deshawn still visits weekly with a bag of black beans or new notebooks for the Leon Hayes Fund. We sit and check cases, underline the steps, freeze assets, get medical talk screens, legal help, therapy after the crisis. Each time a family is safe again, we plant another tree. Each time a file is marked resolved, Ruth ties a yellow ribbon on the fence. Pastor Isaiah sometimes rings the small bell and says, "Remember to breathe, doctor." Leonard Price sends more seeds and says the hospital now knows Leon's lesson. When symptoms look like a stroke but don't fit, think poison. The city's hidden lines, police, investigators, doctors, bankers aren't loose pipes anymore. They connect into a safety net for people who once thought luck was all they had. On Sunday mornings, I go to Elmwood, place flowers, and tell Leon about the garden, the fund, and the people learning to walk into their homes without fear. I set a flat stone on his marker. On rainy mornings, it shines like his smiling eyes. I whisper, I couldn't keep everything the same, but I kept the most important thing, the path of truth. Each time I say it, my heart feels lighter, like a shirt with all the loose threads snipped off. Back home, I light a small candle, wash 2 cups, and write in my journal. I list the names of those who came through my gate not to keep score, but to keep thanks. Thanks for trusting that a gray-haired woman can keep a light on. I know life never erases all darkness. It just teaches us how to place our lights for the wind. As long as people ask for help, I'll have a wooden chair, a pot of mint tea, and one more note that says, "Tighten the bolts in this order." And as long as the wind chime rings, I'll remind myself, don't call family betrayal by cute names. If you've walked with me this far, may I ask, in your home, what time does the porch light turn on? If your answer is, not yet, I hope this story is a small switch. Maybe someone at the end of your street needs a warm dot of light so they don't lose their way. If this ending moved you, please subscribe so we can meet again under porch lights that know how to breathe. Not satisfied yet? Please comment with honest feedback so we can do better. And if you still don't like this video, please press like. Anyway, those polite clicks help us learn and make future videos better and a better fit for you. Thanks for watching to the end. And please tap the end screen to see more stories. See you in the next video, where another porch light is waiting to be turned on.